You know every time we speak, it's no apologies. This is Wicklow Healthcare Advisory, presenting industry insiders, brought by Bill Murray. He help you in a real hurry. From ownership to healthcare, he an advocate, teaching you how to buy and sell practices. From CPAs to attorneys, all guests, here to help you reach your goals. You never know who's on next. This is Wicklow Healthcare Advisory. Let's go!
Let's go! Welcome. We are on episode 3 of Industry Insiders, presented by Wicklow Healthcare Advisory. I'm your host, founder, and CEO of Wicklow Healthcare Advisory, Bill Murray. It's great to be here today. We've got a great guest for you, a true insider of the industry. In our last recording, we had a great attorney on. Prior to that, we had a great bank on. We're filling out the team here. So if you're starting to see a theme, that makes sense. We're doing things here in a very robust way to make sure that you're seeing people in the industry that you should be partnered with. And this individual doesn't need an introduction. Today's guest has been an accounting firm that has focused on the veterinary industry for years and has a great background, also a really great story to tell about his entrance into the veterinary marketplace. So without further ado, Jharid Pratt, come on in. Jharid Pratt is the principal of Granite Peak Associates, a veterinarian and healthcare-focused accounting firm in New England, but also serves clients nationally. So Jharid, welcome. Really great to see you, and so happy you were able to join us today.
I appreciate it, Bill. Love the energy, as always, out of you. So, yeah, happy to have the conversation here today.
Oh, I got energy and coffee, right? I'm fueled by coffee these days with the kids and everything else going on. Well, listen, thanks for joining. Let's start off. I'd love to hear a little bit and tell the listeners about, your journey into the veterinary medicine field. How did you start? What was your background? And how did you form and start growing Granite Peak in the veterinary field?
Sure. I think the whole thing kind of fell into it, right? So I'm very fortunate. I've actually had one job my entire career. What started as an internship in college evolved to, me owning this firm today and taken to where it's become. So when I first started with the firm back in the day, we had a concentration in vet med. So veterinary tax filing was one of the very first tax returns that I worked on. And the big thing about that is most clinics, they own the real estate. Most clinics operate as what's called a pass-through entity. So think as a partnership or as an S corporation. So you have the practice, you have the real estate arm, ultimately all pouring into a family tax filing. So for me, it was really the opportunity and ability to really do some comprehensive and impactful planning. While it's fun to work with big corporations of the world, you tend to be a checklist on their to-do list, right? So you check the box, get a tax return filed. With an animal practice, it's so important. That function is critical. So to be a part of that and to play a role in helping these hospitals grow, that's what I latched onto. And then from there, like anything, I think if you try real hard and you do a good job, you just build some momentum, build some name recognition. At the moment, our firm currently works with over 165 clinics. As you mentioned, we've taken it national. Wow. So we're in about 35 states. I always like to say team for us is critical. So we don't hire employees here, we hire advisors. And we want our advisors to really provide a really, really unique client experience. And we're fortunate that of the 16 team members, we cover 9 states, so all the way from New Hampshire out west to California, and a little bit in between there.
That's really interesting. I've obviously had interactions with you and your firm and your team on, a lot of the buy side representation that you do. So when you're working with a buyer, an associate, for example, that's looking to get into ownership for the first time, but you also had that experience. You were an employee, and then you became a partner, and now you're the principal of the firm, and now you have partners. So you have a very interesting experience that you've also been on that journey that some of your clients are going on. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey for yourself as you became the principal of Granite Peak?
Sure. I mean, what do you want to call it, a journey, or what I like to say is a roller coaster, right? And it's a ride. And you jump on it as a business owner for the ups and the downs. Everyone likes to fantasize about the goods, landing the client, growing the revenue. But at the same time, there's the negatives to it. There's the missed opportunities with employees, the bad client experiences, and it's how you recover from those opportunities. So I'm very fortunate to have seen it, to have taken part in a transition period that wasn't a buy-in 100%. It was a staggered buy-in. So I can speak to kind of, an associate buying in, an associate buying out. There's something to it, gaining knowledge and insight from listening and learning is one thing. So having that technical ability, but then the experience to know, I've been right in your shoes. I can speak to that emotion, how you're feeling, has been exciting, has been, again, I think a value add to the client base that we're able to offer here to say, hey, no, these are real life experiences that we've been a part of and have seen play out in time.
Well, 160 plus clients just in veterinary, and I know that you have some other healthcare verticals that you're focused on as well. That's rapid growth, and it seems like it's funny. I think we've known each other for a while now, but now I'm seeing you at trade shows. We're seeing each other at events. I'm seeing you out at Western Veterinary Conference and the VMXs of the world. So that growth, I'm assuming, obviously that's because of the grind, right? I think you're really talking about the grind of owning a business and growing a business. But that's also got to be difficult to manage at times, right? When you have explosive growth like you guys are having and you're bringing on all these new clients, how have you been managing through those challenges?
Day at a time, right? So to get to that point, what I would say was some rapid growth. For us, it was kind of like a burn the boats mentality. Hey, if we're going to say we are the advisors within the veterinary community, we're going all in here. We're going to ensure that this is our target market. This is all we're focusing and surrounding ourselves with. It allowed us to actually find additional areas for, to fill out the team. So we're not only bringing in CPAs that are focusing in solely on tax. Back in February, we had an outstanding hire in Megan who spent 25 years in practice as a CVPM. So when we think of, we're going to be able to tell you, let's spend this at year end to bring your tax rates down, right? And to stay in that wheelhouse of where we want you to be. And here's your liability come April 15th. But we're always also going to know the vendors' names. We're also going to know what it's like to fill out a calendar and a schedule and the doctor's workflow. So I think just submersing ourselves within the industry has led us to its rapid growth. But like anything, systems, processes, getting down the basics. So we have a really, really good foundation. You don't want to be top heavy. You don't want to be wobbly and fail to deliver on your core deliverables.
Great. So tell for the audience, when they hear oh, I'm an accountant, everyone thinks, well, I got to do a tax return. Maybe they're getting some quarterly P&Ls. They might be working with a local accounting firm today. What does Granite Peak do for a veterinarian client that might be different than kind of your local CPA who's doing general small businesses?
I can tell you what we're not going to do, and we're not going to be historians. I think we should be fired if we're coming to you right at the end of the year and saying, oh, you know what, Doc, you could have or should have done X, Y, and Z along the way. Or if we're preparing that tax filing and say, hey, get your checkbook out, here's a $25,000 payment that's due for April 15th, and you got to pay it this week. So I think just taking the stress, the complexity, and the scariness out of the IRS and in the tax code and the tax filing, dumbing it down, simplifying it. I always tell our clients, we don't want you to cite code section to us, but we want you to understand what we're doing. We want to be able to read a return to you and you say, oh, that's why Granite Peak is doing this. This is why they told me to buy this before the end of the year. So for us, the only way that we're able to do that is taking a proactive approach. We do require quarterly conversations with all of our clinics. So in those quarterly conversations can be 30 minutes, it could be 2 hours. And the conversation evolves and changes, right? But I think it allows us to anticipate. It allows us to identify areas of opportunity.
So you're talking, you and your staff are talking to the clients once a quarter, and I'm assuming in those conversations they range from, hey, how was your quarter? Here's what's going on from a tax perspective, but also do you get into the nitty gritty about the business? Are you looking at production? Are you looking at COGS? Are you looking at cost of goods sold? What do those conversations entail? And I'm sure like some of them are very quick. Like you said, some of them are 20, 30 minutes. It's just, checking the box. Hello, this is what's going on in your business. It's really well run. Everything's running and really efficient. And in some of those 2-hour conversations, I'm assuming it's because there's something going on in the business that you guys have uncovered. So give us the range of what those conversations look like.
Yeah, we break it down into quarters, right? So your Q1 is going to be heavy on the tax filing. It's our report card. Hey, I just talked to you for 12 months about what we wanted you to do. Here it is. Were we able to deliver upon what we said we were going to deliver upon? Q2, so get us to the summer months, it's heavy on operational focus. We're going to focus on 5, what we call key KPIs, key performance indicators. Those surround revenue, cost of goods sold, rent, which a lot of times you control, people cost, and then your EBITDA margin. What's left at the end of the day for cash flow. Q3 is our big tax planning season. So for us, you get 8-9 months of operations at that point. We have a really good understanding of where year-end profitability is going to land, which obviously drives what the tax liability is going to be. And then your Q4 conversation, we like to think of that as just a final checklist. It's a walkthrough. It's like going into football season, just a walkthrough before game day, right? So we're just making sure, hey, we've just met 3 quarters. Was that result still the result that we truly want? Do we have to course correct? Do you have to change anything before 12/31?
Great. We'll touch on EBITDA. It's my favorite acronym these days.
Right?
EBITDA is like try to define EBITDA for anybody, and it's just unbelievable. So we'll talk about EBITDA in a minute. So that's it. So touch points with clients, very focused on their financial, but also very focused on the business. Because at the end of the day, like the tax return, and I like how you said, like, you don't want to be a historian, right? It's not about telling you what you could have and should have done over the last quarter, the last year, at the end of the year, or April 10th. Hey, write this check to the government because you should have done this. It's about planning, right? It's about making sure that you're a team and you understand the business and are really kind of driving out of the numbers, like getting the data, reviewing that data and saying, hey, we're noticing some things. Cost of goods sold, I had a conversation with one of your associates this week on a practice that we're working on, and, cost of goods sold came up, and it was, COGS. Everyone says COGS, that's cost of goods sold. It's, the expenses that are related to the services that you provide. The COGS conversation was around what do we think COGS should be in, a small animal practice. And I had a rate that I thought was good, and your associate had a rate that was different. But the fact that we were even having that conversation about this business and coming down, well, I think it's 28%. Well, I think it's 31%. And having that conversation was interesting. But it was also good to see how in tune your team was on that financial for that client. I lost that argument, unfortunately. I'm going to win the next one. But it was good to see. Like, I saw it firsthand, like how involved your team was on the financial side of the business, and understanding what was driving those numbers was really great to see. Let's touch on EBITDA. EBITDA is always a fun conversation. We're going to try to keep this to 35 minutes, so we're not going to explain EBITDA the 70 million different ways that it's looked at today. But EBITDA is one of those like hot button topics, I think, because there's so much private equity and there's these corporate buys still going on and over the last years. But also buyers now, like private buyers, are asking about the EBITDA of practices. I don't know if many of them understand what the EBITDA actually means, but it's funny to see like this buzzword, this buzz acronym has just evolved over the last several years, where even private buying veterinarians are asking what the EBITDA multiple is going to be for the practice that they're buying, which is new. Like, that's a new thing. Are you experiencing that similarly with your clients, or are you going through someone who's thinking about a sale in the next 3 to 5 years? Are you talking about EBITDA with them and what that means to their business?
100%, and I love that, right? Because we're so focused. What I make in profitability year over year, we should be looking. Let's take a step back. What's my company value at? Did I increase the value of my company over the past 12 months? So this shouldn't be just a 2 to 3 year out discussion. Let's intertwine that. Maybe we're going to be a little bit more heavy for those clients that are 3 to 5 years out. But even the startups, all right, what do I have to do to control EBITDA margin, to grow EBITDA margin? It doesn't matter if you just bought into a clinic or started a clinic. Those discussions should happen. They're going to evolve, but they should happen immediately. Because we don't want it to be a foreign concept to you. We don't want you to always be so focused. blinders on to your year-to-date operating results. Again, big picture. What am I truly building here? What's the value creation that's growing year after year?
Great. It's almost like having the starter conversation with like the end in mind. But it's not about the end. It's about the journey, right? So if you're focused on financials, if you're focused on growing revenue, if you're focused on growing profitability, and you're focused on your EBITDA number, your cost of goods sold, all of those components of what they all make up the value of your business. That just means also, like, yes, you'll get a better sale at the end, potentially, right? You'll have more value at the end of the sale. You're also going to make more money for yourself as an owner throughout that journey. So you might be 30 years away from selling, and you might be like, oh, I don't have time for this. But that's the time that's not invested in the financial, I always found, is money lost, right? If you're not invested in the financial and you don't understand your numbers and you're not working with someone that can drive into the data with you, you're leaving money on the table as forms of income. And that income loss over decades could be extremely significant. Do you agree?
Compounded. It's compounded because that income loss is the use of the money. What would you have done with those additional resources? How faster could you have grown? How much more money could you just have put in your pocket? So yeah, 1,000%. And again, especially with the younger clinics, it's also not thinking in absolutes. All right, just because I'm telling you we really want your EBITDA percentage to be this or your people percentage to be Y, those are guardrails. Let's work towards that.
Sure.
Let's work towards that and know why, hey, I'm still high here, but I'm growing a dynamite team that's never going to, it's not going to turn over. So as long as I continue to grow my revenue, those numbers will soften and fall back to a normalized range. So it's great conversations to have. It's exciting conversations. We're numbers guys, right? So for us, it's great. And I think if you do quick touch points on a quarterly basis, it makes all the sense in the world for the practice owners.
Great. The outside of the tech, we spent a lot of time on the financial and data. What other services does Granite Peak offer clients? So I've obviously interacted with your team when they're representing like a buyer. We actually have a transaction going on right now where you were doing some buy-side due diligence. So what other things do you offer the veterinarian community to help support them in ownership?
Yeah, again, we want a seat at the table so that the role that we play can evolve. We don't want to be kind of that one size fits all. We want to make sure the services that the clinic needs is something that we can provide. So that, as you mentioned in the buy side diligence, all right, let's make sure entity formation is correct. Have we, we don't do insurance, but can we offer, industry specific advisory there? Can we surround them with a really, really great team that knows the industry that's going to take really good care of them? We're going to talk about what their salary should be. So reasonable comp. What's the lease should be? What's that fair market value that they have to pay back and forth between their related party real estate entity? And again, with the advisory side of things, we're going in and looking at revenue schedules. We're talking inventory management. We're looking at your people cost and identifying areas of opportunities there. We've already also helped out with like job descriptions. So again, we feel like we've built a really unique team here that can stay in our lane, but also provide a really, really comprehensive experience.
And from a national, like being national, I don't consider myself national. There are certain states that I probably won't be able to get to. But you guys are national. How does that, like, as a national firm, how do you manage getting in front of clients that aren't in your backyard? Like, I know you guys are in New England just like I am. So how do you keep those touch points with clients? I mean, you have the quarterly call. Is there anything else you're doing to make yourself feel local to those clients that aren't in your backyard?
Yeah, I think, we're fortunate, right? Technology certainly helps and aids a lot of that. And that's why communication is critical. I mean, with the boom in technology, this AI revolution that we're in, don't lose sight of the personal touch, the people, the connection we all need. We all need that. We need that touch, and even if it's a quick text, it's a quick email, just something to stay in front of the client base. Plus, we're doing other things. So we send out a monthly newsletter with kind of some quick hitting tips, facts. We do webinars as well that we offer with CE. It's a 1 hour CE once a month for just general topics to make the practice owners better. So we want to, again, just provide a really comprehensive service here.
Great. So it's how long at Granite Peak now under the Granite Peak name? It's been a little while, right?
It's been a couple years, right? So it's went through those couple iterations, but I'd say really the inflection point for us was probably the end of 2020 into 2021, where we dove all in. And again, it shows you kind of do that burn the boats mentality. We're fortunate. We've just crossed 75 new clinics just this year alone. So the growth has been tremendous, like you said, just getting out in these trade shows, joining professional
Seen, right?
organizations. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Being seen, being out there, and connecting with all of the industry professionals that are out there. I mean, I would tell you that the Industry Insider was born around that idea. It was about making sure that we're connecting the healthcare community, whether it's veterinarians, dentists, or medical doctors, to people that can help them in their business be successful, whether they're starting, expanding, growing, and then obviously exiting. So that's great. Next question I have for you then is, what two pieces of advice do you have for veterinarians in ownership, either entering into ownership, or we could talk about entering and then exiting. That would be great.
sure. I think entering ownership, a part of it is just is surrounding yourself with a solid team, right? Early on, you do want to know the numbers. You do want to get into the weeds a little bit, but also you have to surround yourself with a good professional network so you can stay focused in the exam room, producing, generating revenue, working on the team, the culture, the SOPs, and all of that, and allowing yourself to get it right from the start. Have the right entity classification, making sure your financial statements are AHA chart of accounts and classified and categorized correctly. Doing that early on avoids the hiccups down the road when you do run into issues for inconsistencies, and you have to kind of backtrack and pull apart the mess that was created. And then on the exit side, right, it's just knowing your numbers. And if you can do that every year, know your numbers. Make sure that you're setting yourself up for sale. It sounds repetitive because we just kind of talked about it, but you too often, unfortunately, we get an opportunity. Practice really wants to sell, really wants to sell. Like they're done. But the buyer's going to be, as you know, buyer doesn't look back at just what just happened. They're going to go back a couple years now, and you just want to make sure that the action you've taken over the past couple of years actually moved the needle, actually allowed for a better exit. Like, should you be buying that big piece of equipment and you want to sell in 6 months? Do you need to go out and do that major renovation on your practice in order to sell in 6 months? Those are the types of conversations that we want to try to avoid, because hopefully with proactive planning, we've already thought through that. We've already kind of volleyed that back and forth and eliminated those big surprises.
That was great advice. I have, and there's a very large population, I think, of these types of hospitals and clinics that are out there today. It's the clinic that is owned by maybe one or two doctors that has been owned for 30 plus years. Those owners are now in their 60s or pushing 70 or later in age. So these are what you would consider late stage career owner operators, and they haven't invested anything into the facility, right? So their numbers are fantastic. They've got great financials. They know their numbers. They know their EBITDA, but they've missed that second part, which is if you're going to sell, whether you sell it privately or corporately, the buyers today, corporate and private, other veterinarians, they want to see a facility that has been kept up, that has good technology, that they would be proud to walk into and operate in, and also, more importantly, to recruit other people into, not just other doctors, it's just staff. So that's a great point. And I'm assuming you guys also have those types of conversations too. So it's not just about data and finance and figuring out the numbers from a tax perspective. It's also like, hey, what's the state of your hospital? You haven't had an investment here in a while. Do you notice those things in some financials, and are you having those conversations as well?
I think you have to, right? 100%. It's just looking at it. Fortunately, hey, cost of capital is coming down. Is it the right opportunity to go out and get a build-out loan or expansion loan? Get it done, because again, what does that mean if you did that project, not just from the aesthetics, the look, the feel, the ability to attract and retain talent, but also from just a revenue generation standpoint? Can we add a couple of doors to the exam rooms here? Can we bring on that extra, full-time equivalent? Run it out for 12 to 24 months. What does that do to revenue? EBITDA margin.
Yeah,
it's huge. It's huge.
Yep, 100%. The value creation by adding additional revenue streams through renovation and expansion, those usually return. You're seeing sometimes 2, 3, 4x of the investment right away, which is great. And then when you think about exiting, obviously we'll spend some time talking about exiting. On the exit side, when are you having those conversations? So we always tell people, and I think when I hear most of these conversations, like, hey, if you're 5 years away, you really have to think about these things. It sounds like you're having those conversations much earlier on when you talk about enterprise value with your clients. So, like, when your client hits a certain point in their career, when are you really pushing that narrative and saying, hey, now we've talked about value, but here's why, and now we should talk about what your strategy is for an exit, whether you're 10 years away, 5 years away. Like, when does that organically happen with your clients today?
I don't know if I can pinpoint when it happens, right? Because here's the part of asking those types of questions early on, because we're trying to get to, the vision creation. Hey, tell me what the practice looks like in 5 years. So if you tell me I really want in 5 years to have 4 doctors, I want to have this type of footprint, this type of revenue, then we get 3 years out and you're there. If my team has kept good notes and we're relying on those notes along the way and referencing back to it, right? We're saying, hey, we got there. Here's your EBITDA margin. We can keep running this thing, but at what point are we not going to be able to continue to grow EBITDA margin because you're operationally efficient? This is outstanding the way you've run this thing. Do we have the conversation? Do you think about exiting earlier than anticipated because you grew this so quickly and so well? So I don't know if I answer that question directly, because again, it can't be just like I'm only going to speak about it 3 years out. Again, we want to get it as early as possible. This might be a 5-minute conversation. It might not be the hour conversation that individual identifies, hey, I'm out in 2 years. All right, a lot of time and attention is going to be focused on there. If we sprinkle it in, if we do those 5-10 minute quick hitters, we're going to have a really good understanding of when the time is the time to go out and go find a buyer.
I think you hit it on the head with it. It shouldn't be a surprise, right? Unrelated to a health issue, right?
Yeah.
It's a sale of a business. There shouldn't be this surprise conversation where you wake up one day and, hey, I'm going to sell this year. Like, usually the owner has had this conversation over years, and you're prepared for it. So with your clients, that's an ongoing conversation that happens every year as you talk about the 5-year plan, the 3-year plan, the immediate needs, the future needs. That's a really great outlook. I'm going to throw you a curveball before we get to your Wicklow. And the curveball today is, you're the first guest we've had on that actually is a business owner, right? So can you talk about, and you have a team that has grown and grown and grown over the years. Can you talk a little bit about your leadership style as a principal with partners now, but also with a very large staff? How do you go about leading your team and leading people in your organization? Because a lot of our, this podcast is really for owners or soon to be owners. So talk to me about your leadership style as an owner of your own business.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because I think back, and not too long ago, if you even go 5 years back, this ownership role that I've had was for a group of 4 people. So yes, you were an owner, but you were doing a little everything. I'm still doing the billing. I'm still doing the 90% of client-facing work. But now as we build an organization, right, and we've just crossed the 16 team member, hopefully 20 by year end here. It's not too. You got to find importance in the little stuff that they preach, like the mission, vision, values, and do we have complete alignment within the team on those mission, vision, values? Do we know, this is what it's going to be. This is our list of non-negotiables that we're going to hire, fire, and promote based on. And having a clear understanding of those, I think, has been critical for our growth. For me as a leader, I'm going to give you 100% trust day one. I don't believe that trust is earned. So I'm going to give it to you all on day one. I want you to have at-bats and experiences, not just with your team, but with the clients, so that you can continue to rise to the occasion. I think that relates well in any business. Vet med, what you do, what I do is if we empower our team, don't think that you can be the only one to do everything. You hire employees, you hire advisors to be able to grow this organization. So for me, that has been my biggest sticking point or opportunity. Once I've realized that and truly bought into that, growth happens. Growth just happens when you do that. And the other thing I did is, again, I didn't want to act like I knew everything. So I surrounded myself with an outstanding advisory board that I can just bounce ideas by. Hey, I'm now at this amount of employees. I'm now at this revenue size. How'd you handle it? Ask a lot of questions. I'm a big learner. You got to learn every day. One of our core values is a consistent and persistent pursuit of growth. I think the worst thing you can do is just say, hey, here I am, and then a year out, well, I'm still here, right? So it's just instilling that type of culture. That's what's worked out for me so far.
Great. So what I'm learning from that is kind of stay true to your core values. One thing I wanted to point out to our listeners is hiring for your core values and giving 100% trust day one. Because if you're hiring for your core values and you're not, if you're having that interview where your gut is saying, this doesn't feel great, but you really need that vet tech, right? You so need that vet tech so bad, but your gut is saying, culturally, I'm not feeling good about this. Don't hire them. Right? 100%. It's not worth it, because in the end, if they're not bought in to the core values of your business, that bad hire could turn into a cancer, especially if you don't like to fire people. And I've met a lot of veterinarians in my career, and I don't think anyone actually likes to fire anybody, but no one likes to fire people less than a veterinarian, right? So, if you're not an easy fire person, then you have to make sure you don't misfire on those hires. So staying true to those core values and hiring the right team around you, and then empowering them. I love that word. Empowering them from the start really does make sure that you can give them the keys and say, hey, go run. I trust you. You've got this. When you have questions, come to me. Not everyone in this building knows everything about everything. So let's make sure that we're bubbling those issues up as they come. And it's okay to make a mistake. That's one thing that I always, as I manage people in the past, like, it's okay to make a mistake. You can't do the same mistake 100 times, and you can't hide the mistake. If a mistake happens, let's talk about it, let's bring it up, and let's address it, and then learn from it and move on. I think that's great. Core values, mission values, I think is a real big tenet in any organization, whether you're small or large. And if you have those and you're true to those, growth usually happens, right? And good hiring usually happens.
100%.
It's great.
100%.
Great.
Yep.
So for our listeners, for first-time listeners, the podcast name is Industry Insiders, and my business's name is Wicklow Healthcare Advisory. The Wicklow story, Wicklow is a county in Ireland that I aspire to one day retire to. Maybe not full-time, but have a place over there. My family, my wife and I have been over to Ireland in that area multiple times. I've been there on my own as a young lad. But that's my retirement story. So when I was thinking about the name of the business, I thought about what I was doing, and I was helping people exit their business. Wicklow Healthcare Advisory is a sell-side advisory business that are helping people leave ownership, and in most cases move on to retirement, or maybe if they're not retirement age, create that generational wealth event where retirement now is funded and will be much more palpable when they do decide to hang it up and go spend more time doing whatever it is they want to do. So Wicklow is that name that keeps me laser focused in everything that I do, all the interactions that I have with my clients about helping them get to their retirement story. So I ask all of our guests, what's your Wicklow? So Jared, what's your retirement story? What's your Wicklow? We'd love to hear it.
That's a good question, right? Because as much as we've just preached the importance of, right, always thinking about what that exit is, when you're in the weeds, sometimes it's like you're so laser focused on growth. The retirement story that happens in 20 years from now, potentially, like, you don't put as much emphasis on. So yeah. I'd give you a longer winded answer, because a part of what I want to do in the Wicklow I want to create is my retirement dream is to build an organization that I can have retirement experiences every year, so that I can build something that's bigger than myself, that I don't have to wait and save up and then get into retirement and spend those 10 years traveling. If I want to, I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to find a place out in Boulder, Colorado, because for us and my family, that was our spot. It was the ability for my two young kids to get outdoors, to hike, to bike, to jump in a lake and have a lot of good time away from a screen, away from the noise and the hustle and bustle of living in the New England area. So a part of my Wicklow, my retirement dream is to live it every day, is to create a business that allows for me to step away for a week here, go out west and have a great family time, but then come back and get after it. And then who knows what comes in the next 20 years. But if I can provide that for my team, and I can build an organization to have my team members have those experiences as well, to me that's success. The money always follows success, in my opinion. It's just a byproduct of it. So if we keep building and marching towards that, I feel very confident and strong that it's going to allow for that type of experience to be felt by every single member of Granite Peak.
That is awesome. That's a great living out your Wicklow every year, which is fantastic. Well, Jharid, again, I just wanted to thank you for coming on today. For anyone that would like to reach out to Jharid and his team at Granite Peak Associates, his email address will be on the screen here in a minute. It will also be as we exit the podcast. You'll see it on screen for those of you looking on video. But Jharid, if you just want to give your email address out to anyone listening right now, that would be great. Or just the web address of Granite Peak would be fantastic for anyone not looking at us online.
Yeah, visit the website granitepeakcpa.com, granitepeakcpa.com. We have a link right in there. You can schedule a call, get on my calendar. Sits right on the main screen there. So, Bill, always love catching up with you. Great experience. Exciting to see everything that you're building and creating at Wicklow Healthcare Advisory. And very much appreciate the time, man.
Great. Thank you so much. It was a great conversation and look forward to seeing you out in the field. We'll talk soon. Cool. See ya.
You know, every time we speak, it's no apologies. This is Wicklow Healthcare Advisory, presenting industry insiders, brought by Bill Murray. He help you in a real hurry. From ownership to healthcare, he an advocate, teaching you how to buy and sell practices. From CPAs to attorneys, all guests, here to help you with your goals. You never know who's on next. This is Wicklow Healthcare Advisory.